It's a magic number. Yes, it is. It's the magic number.
What does it all mean?
Hello and welcome to Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy. That's me, Matthew Syed. This week we've got something a little different. We've been blown away by all the tweets using the hashtag Fred, Sav, Syed. We've collected the very best topics. So let's get straight into it. And this is one that Freddie has chosen, and we've had this tweeted by a number of different people. If you could revisit one moment in your career and change it, what would it be? What was that sliding doors moment? Freddie.
Well, yeah, because I look back at my career and I'll be honest with you. Do you know when people say, you do an interview and someone will say to you, what do you regret? And I always say, nothing. Nothing. Yeah. Because do you know when you're in the situation, your pressure of where you are, your state of mind dictates that decision you make. So I'm not sure at the time you have a choice. So it's no good regretting it, but this is slightly different. What I'm saying is, if you could choose one moment of your football career, Robbie, if you could look back with the benefit of hindsight to say, you know what, in the cold light of day now, if I could put Robbie Savage in there now, what would I have done different? And what situation would you put yourself in? And Robbie, only one. So, we don't want your greatest hits. We don't want 20 or 30, just one.
So mine would be, we spoke about it quite a lot, the class of 92. Mm-hmm. So I was a centre forward. I was weak. I was physically small. Mm-hmm. I wasn't quick. I couldn't score. I used to close the corner flag down. I was a headless chicken.
So do you think you was in the right game?
But these things were told about me. I was a centre forward, and in that class of 92, you had great midfielders who turned out to be the best. Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt, David Beckham, Keith Gillespie. These players who are now legends, especially Scholes and Beckham. So, Fred, going back, I wished and would it have turned out differently if I had been a midfield player? So I was a centre forward. You know, I could pass. You know, I could see a pass, a footballing brain, they call it. I could run all day, up and down, all day long. I was aggressive. Yep. So if I'd have been placed in the middle of the park, would my career have turned out differently? It wasn't until Bobby Gould spotted me playing for Wales under 21s. I was centre forward. I continued that. Went to Crewe from Man U, played as centre forward. Dario Gradi.
Can I just ask a question? Yeah. Do you know you say centre forward? Who decides what position you turn up and you go, all these kids can play football. Yeah. I played centre half as a kid because I wasn't particularly skillful. I didn't understand the game, but I could boot it and I could get my head on it. Yeah. But who says Robbie Savage you're a centre forward?
Well, I think it's when you watch it. We talked about heroes in a previous podcast. Mm-hmm. Mine was Mark Hughes, Ian Rush, and I think it's one of those. You know, when you take your ball to school when you're like in the junior school, and the teacher says, right, who wants to play where today? Who wants to score the goals? You all put your hand up. Yeah. You all want to score the goals.
It falls into place now. You're a glory hunter.
Glory hunter. You all want to score the goals. And the level I played at in the junior football, I scored 72 goals in 10 games.
But is that where, as a kid, the best player plays up front because he scores all the goals? You was the best player, correct. So you got sent up front.
Got 70 in 2 games.
No, 72 in 10. 72 in 10. Sorry. Average 7 goals a game. So I think the best player...
7.2.
I think the best player plays up front. And I think that continued... but then...
Was he off injured for a while, the best player? Did he put you up front?
So then, Fred, I would go to Man U. I was spotted as a centre forward. But looking back now, the way my career turned out when I was a wholehearted, great energy, influenced games as a midfield player, I just think now, if I'd have been put... And some of the best coaches I've ever... who've been involved in football, Eric Harrison, Sir Alex Ferguson, Dario Gradi... Mm-hmm. It was Bobby Gould who actually spotted me, played up front against Germany. He dropped me back in the middle of the park and I was sensational. And I don't mind saying that, I was. So in my head, I'm thinking, do you know what? People say I'm bitter when I'm on TV and read about Man U because I got released. It's absolute nonsense. You know, my boy's there now and he's a midfield player. Uh-huh. I just believe, Fred, it's a great question. One place, one time, if I'd have been 16, 17 and somebody would have seen earlier, do you know what?
Do you know?
he's a set midfielder. My career might have been different.
And it may have been because think about what that group, that
Yeah.
cohort that you mentioned, the class of 92 went on to achieve. Lots of Premier League titles, the treble 98, 99. And Nicky Butt, who was in the class of 92, good player. I don't think he was a better player than you were.
But you look back, and to be honest,
Well,
with
actually, he was a bit. I'm just looking into the gallery, and they're going, "What?"
Matthew's at it again. He's nasty these days.
Yes,
Matthew.
I think that's a fair point. Nicky, you got a thing as well, Fred. So I can't believe that's a good question. You've come up with one after 10 shows.
You're still not come up with a good answer though.
What do you mean? It came from the listeners.
It's a fair
They
point
tweeted
because
in.
you think, Matthew,
Yeah.
I went to Crewe and played with Danny Murphy, Gareth Wally, who played in the Premier League, and I got into that midfield when I was moved back by Bobby Gould.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, if I'd have grown up with Nicky Butt, Beckham in the middle of the park and then played with the better players, maybe, because Nicky Butt, when I played against Nicky Butt, I'm not sure he got the better of me that often. You remember, he was playing alongside Roy Keane and these great players. So I wish, Fred, I would have been given the opportunity, or somebody of the great knowledge would have spotted me and said, do you know what? He doesn't score that many goals. He's not quick.
But he was a centre forward.
He's not strong.
I thought he was a centre forward.
Let's try him in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
And, maybe I should have been a bit more assertive and asked, can I play in the middle of the park?
No.
But because you were the best player in school and because the best player played up front as a kid, that's why I was centre forward. So, great question.
but-
One moment in time.
But you had, I know we play it down and we have a laugh and a joke about it, but you had a brilliant career.
Thanks.
If you would have played in the centre of the park as a midfielder,
Oh, what's this? Yeah.
do you think you would have had a better career?
From early on, yes, I do. Because
To what level?
I reckon. Oh, that's a great question. Because you think, Fred, I learnt my trade as a centre forward.
Yeah.
I learnt the movements of a centre forward. I learnt to go towards the ball, to spinning behind. I just go away from the ball to come and get the ball to feet. Linking play back to goal. If I'd have learned to be a midfield player from a younger age, and this is where Matthew's 10,000 hours are coming to play, I never learned.
You'd have developed a different repertoire of skills.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I believe if I'd have
It's interesting.
I'd have started from the age of 9, 10, 11 as a set midfield player, I think my skills would have been better. And I believe, and I'm going to say this, because you think, Fred, and I do put myself down, I
Do
influenced.
too much.
I captained 4 Premier League sides.
Yeah.
Captained my country. Won Player of the Year every club I went for. Influenced big Premier League games. If I'd have played with better players as a set midfielder from a younger age, I believe I could have played Champions League football.
So do you feel fulfilled then?
It's a good question. There's a slight piece of me thinking, what if I would have started in midfield at a younger age?
Very interesting. But I mean, you mentioned, do you feel completely fulfilled? You were one of the all-time greats.
I wasn't. That
You were.
is
Come
a
on.
myth.
No, you were.
No,
You
whoa,
were.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Freddie, you're a
I'm going to
fantastic
stop
player.
this right now. I was decent, and we had this discussion the other week, didn't we, about greats? And there's a handful of greats.
Gary Sobers isn't one.
Well, I might backtrack on that.
I seen him backtrack on
Twitter.
I've been doing a bit of research on Sir Garfield. He was proper, wasn't he? I got that one wrong. Every now and then, Robbie, every now and then. I tell my wife this. It doesn't happen very often, but I do get it wrong. I am human after all.
So what one moment then would you regret? What you would change?
It's not a regret,
Okay, that's
because
right.
my
You would change.
theory on regrets is different
Yeah.
to a lot of people's. You are faced with a choice, and your state of mind and your emotion chooses the automatic route.
Yep.
It's not a choice. That's what you do. Looking back, if I could change one moment of my career, and in some ways I'm going to contradict myself because I'm glad I did it. Because as a person now, I feel I learned a lot from it. However,
Is it on the field or off the field?
oh no, there's too many off the field to start. I'm going on the field. And what it would be was taking the England captaincy before the 2006-07 tour of Australia. I'm glad I did in some ways. We got beat. I found a lot out about myself.
5-0, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Sorry.
Whitewash.
Subsequently.
Oh, whitewash.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else?
Do you think it's too early for you?
No. I think I captained England before that,
Yeah.
right? And I was never really the captain. Michael Vaughan was injured. I took over for a little bit. I got injured. Andrew Strauss took over. Then I came back and I'd do it. And when I was playing well as a cricketer, I found the England captaincy not an easy job, but easier. Because if I had to do something, I'd just do it myself. It's fine. I'll bat, I'll bowl, I'll get on with it. When I started getting injured and I started missing a lot of time, I'd come back into the side, not just as a player, but also as captain. And I'd missed a lot of the things that was going on around the game. I wasn't match fit. I was fit to pass a fitness test. But you know it's like, you've got to get match fit. You need miles in my legs, bowling and batting. And then, looking back, when I took the captaincy for that Ashes tour, there was something not quite right about it. It wasn't right. I remember being in Portugal. I was on one of these warm weather training things with a physio. My family came out and was training hard. And it was in constant contact with the selectors. And it was almost like The Voice or The X Factor, where it's almost like a vote, this. It's like a public vote. Am I captain? Am I not captain? And I'm thinking, well, if you want me as captain, just tell me and I'll crack on with it. But there's an element of doubt in this. And then also, I remember I got unveiled as captain. We went down to the Oval and the squad got announced. I got announced as captain and I was there. And I was stood and I was doing the press. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure this is right. I'm not sure this is right. I am captain of a side. I have had no control who's on this side. I'm looking at my team thinking, I probably won't have 4 or 5 of you at least. So I've got no control over the captaincy. Personally, I don't know how I'm playing because I've been injured for so long. My sole focus has been getting fit. Andrew Strauss, to be fair, has been doing a decent job. So at that point, I should have thought, you know what? I should have trusted my instincts a little bit more.
Said no.
Well, I got wrapped up in it. Everyone was asking. And then you meant to say, yeah, you know what? I want to be captain. I want to be captain. And I realised probably afterwards my best role within the team was I could lead through performance and be a good right-hand man for the captain, not necessarily taking the armband. I had to get, for the side to be successful, I had to be playing well and I had to be fit. And at that point in time, I wasn't, and with the captaincy as well. And then as the tour went on, it just got worse.
But both of you, in a sense, have chosen things off the field of play. You making the decision to take the England captaincy for that tour of Australia. Robbie, your inability to be assertive enough to move into the midfield when you're a youth player. But is there anything you've done on the field of play that you think that was a terrible mistake? Maybe a challenge that you were involved in, Freddie, maybe a field positioning that you went for, a shot that you played that was the wrong shot at the wrong time and it sent you on a trajectory you didn't want?
Well, the problem with cricket is bowling is you get 6 opportunities and over.
Yeah.
If you bowl 1 bad ball, I've got 5 more. It's fine.
3 for 8. I seen you bowled. 2 wides usually an over.
But then with batting, you get 1 chance. And all right, Robbie, you're snorting there. What's happened?
I like that one.
What's going on?
I never usually get it. I like that one.
What's that?
I take it to myself.
That's a pig.
Glenn Chapel.
But when you bat, you get 1 chance.
Yeah.
And it's very, very rare. In a career, probably a handful of times, I can honestly say the ball got me out. Mm-hmm. The rest of it is your fault.
Right.
You played a bad shot, you made a rash decision, or something's happened. So to say, would you change one is particularly hard to do. And I got out in the 90s a few times, which I was never quite that bothered about because I got 90 odd, that's all right.
Yeah.
I don't need to raise my bat and wander around and punch the air. 90 odd's fine.
Yeah.
But then, for me, my decisions all centre around the England captaincy. Looking back, looking back,
You won. Not.
I'm glad I did it. No, this is the contradiction.
Yeah.
I'm
You're glad you
really
did it.
glad
You were
I
England captain.
did it. I've got it on my CV. I was England captain, not a particularly good one, but
But you know now, because I know you really well, as an England captain, maybe one of the things that, because I know you so well, who put the arm around you? Because people don't know you are quite shy, insecure, and as the captain, you've got to be assertive. Who would? I think that you need an arm around you at times. Do you get what I mean?
that's why I fell out with a few. Not the team, but then I fell out a bit with the side a little bit. Not like one person, although there was a couple I can't stand. It was when I was struggling. I thought that I was pretty good at helping people out struggling, and then when I was. It was like, any chance? Like?
You're the captain. You should.
Is anyone going to help me out? Like from the coach downwards.
You're immortal. You're the captain.
Yeah.
You don't
You're
need
supposed to be
an arm
invulnerable, sort of emotional.
And I don't think-
I give that
the
impression.
leadership figure.
Yeah.
But what about you, Matthew? All right, ping pong. Is there a time you should have gone for a backhand? Should have gone for a slice?
Yeah, do you know, when I got this question, I immediately came up with a moment that I regret. I'm a little bit ashamed of, and it involves Desmond Douglas.
Oh.
National Championship final, 1998. Best of 5 games up to 21. Tight match. Never beaten him before. He was slightly past his best. I was at my absolute peak. We were bitter rivals, but very dear friends as well. Got to about 14 all in the 5th. Nail biter. And there's something in table tennis that you never do. And it's when your opponent gets an edge and the umpire doesn't see it, you never deny it. You own up. You tell the truth.
Yeah.
That is like one of the most morally basic things that top table tennis players always do. Now, Des, I mentioned it in a previous podcast. He was very helpful to me. He invited me to his home in Birmingham when I was 15. We trained together. He was a wonderful mentor. He was also the most honest player. You know, it could be an edge that you didn't even see. Yeah. And he would say, that touched. He would put his hand up and say, that touched. 14 all in the 5th. He top spun the ball with his forehand and it caught the edge of the table. It was a fine contact. He knew it had touched. I knew it had touched. He knew that I knew. Most of the front row of the audience spotted it. The umpires didn't. They moved the score to 15-14 to me. And I wanted to win this tournament. National Championships. I was defending the title. I was England number 1. I wanted to beat Des. I'd never beaten him before. And I remember that really vivid moment.
I can't look at you.
And you know what I did?
I can't look at you.
I looked at Des and I said, I don't think it touched. He said, no. He said, no, I think
we
it
had a conversation about it.
No, so we're standing there in between. And he said, no, I think it did touch, Matthew. I said, Des, I don't think it did. And I felt this deep conflict inside. I knew what I was doing was wrong and I just couldn't. And then in my bench, there was my brother, Dennis Neal, former England number 1, one of Chester Barnes's contemporaries, and Brian Halliday, a dear and old friend. And Brian stood up. He said, look, Matthew, I don't want to allow you to do this. You know that it touched. And it was quite embarrassing for somebody on my side to say that. And then I said, okay, the ball touched. Des got the point, and he said, okay, thanks for acknowledging it. It took a while, but anyway, I went on to win the match. I gave a speech afterwards, the mayor, there was a civic reception, and I paid tribute to Des. Didn't mention the fact that I'd tried to cheat him. And I kind of took this with me for a long time. We remained friends, and then I wrote a long column about it in the Times. But even that didn't really get rid of the guilt, because what I did was completely wrong. It was unacceptable. And worst of all, it was to a great guy. And if I could change one thing, I would love to change that.
I've cheated a few people out. When you get them out, and then you know that the umpire stuck his finger up, but it's not out. But who cares? But the one time where I have cheated someone out, and I'm not proud of it, but I don't think regret's the right word. But I was fielding. I was 21 years old. I was playing at Edgbaston against the West Indies, and Jimmy Adams, brilliant West Indian batter, he's in the 90s, and I'm fielding at short cover, which. He's left-handed, so if he looks up, I'm just in his eye line. So Darren Goff's ball one. He's hit it to me at short cover. I've dived one-handed.
Bounced, is it?
Oh, it's bounced, yeah. It's bounced, and I've scooped it up, and I've got this ball in my hand, and Goffey started celebrating. He's got his arms up in the air. It's his 5th wicket as well, so Goffey thinks he's got 5. So I'm there with his ball in my hand, I've got this, moral conundrum.
Yeah.
What do? Do I let Goffey down? Which I don't want to do. Do I just cheat and say he's out? Or do I call him back? I went with the first one. I just threw the ball up in the air and then went and high-fived Goffey. No. And I'll never forget Jimmy Adams. Jimmy Adams was just looking at me because he knew it had bounced. I knew it had bounced. And then walked off and...
Did he raise it with you after?
Never mentioned again.
No.
Just a quick one for you, Matthew, on this is... You said that as a table tennis player, but you're a journalist as well. Have you regretted an article, a piece, a comment that you've put out in the press?
Well,
if
actually,
you could
this is...
change one article, retract it. It never happened. I never wrote this.
You can't be... I try and read his articles. He's behind a paywall.
It's what?
Behind a paywall.
What do you mean?
Thanks for looking.
You can't read them. You read the first paragraph, then you have to subscribe.
You got paid to read his?
Yeah.
Is
that right, Matthew?
No, mine, Des Douglas. How can you charge for your articles?
Am I right? Am I right?
Yeah, it's behind a paywall.
Why?
But it's well worth the money.
Really? How much is it?
Because how else are you going to be able to afford to pay for journalists to do their job if you don't charge?
How much is it to read one of your articles?
I think it's a few quid a week.
Quid a week?
To read the whole of the Times.
Shocking.
Really worthwhile, I'll tell you.
Answer the question enough.
Yeah,
delay,
I'm trying to think. Well, there is one article that I think I do regret. Peter Ebdon.
Snooker player.
Snooker player used to have a ponytail. Now he's got a bald head.
Great best fans in the world.
Yeah, exactly. He played Ronnie O'Sullivan. I think it was in the World Championship, I don't know, 10 years ago. And he's quite a slow player.
Oh, he's those dishwashers.
Yeah, unbelievable. And Ronnie O'Sullivan was in the corner and he kind of draped this towel over his head while Ebdon was playing. And he was sort of gorging his forehead with his nails. He was clearly getting really wound up by Ebdon taking forever over completely routine shots. And I like Ronnie, I know him pretty well. I was angry and I wrote this piece in an angry frame of mind and effectively called Ebdon a cheat.
No.
I didn't think it was gamesmanship. I thought it went beyond gamesmanship.
That's not is that liable?
Well, but I did it in such a way.
Liable?
Libel.
Oh,
yeah, I'm with you.
Liable? No, he's telling the truth.
I might have been liable to libel.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
I know what you meant, Rob.
But I did it I laid out the facts and then I said, in my opinion, that was too far. That was cheating. So I made a distinction between what had happened and my opinion on what Ebdon sued.
He sued you?
He sued the Times for libel. And
Did he win?
It went to... it was a legal precedent because instead of going to court, it went to something called binding arbitration. First time it had ever happened where, you go and our lawyer and his lawyer went and argued it in front of an official. It was a cheaper way of going. But Ebdon lost. They found on our side. They thought it was fair comment. And a book has just been published in the last 2 or 3 weeks where Ebdon was interviewed about this. And he said it really affected him for many years, being called a cheat when he was doing his best. And he said it was probably his best ever performance as a snooker player. And all of the joy he would have taken to it was evaporated when he read this article. And the fact that many people agreed with me. And looking back on it, I think I was a bit harsh on him. And I regret the fact that he was so wounded by it all.
You're real dark side to you, isn't there? What's happened? Des Douglas, you've cheated him. Now you've ruined Peter Ebdon's career.
I know.
Is that why he's ever fell out? Hey, he had a ponytail.
When I saw the book publication, he's become a vegan. He's moved.
Was you.
He's moved to Budapest.
That's you, Budapest.
Do you know what? On the football field, one regret I've got. I've got a lot of regrets, but the biggest. So getting Justin Edinburgh sent off when he hardly touched me in the cup final, I was embarrassed. It was stupid. Looking back now, hypocritical of me to call other players out. He went in for a challenge. He thought I fouled him. He got up, swung, caught my hair, and I went down clutching my face. Nonsense, horrible, ridiculous.
Career threatening for you, that though, wasn't it?
It was a bad day. Embarrassing. Other things. But the biggest regret and this might sound daft, right, is not headbutting or punching Dion Dublin back when he headbutted me.
Yeah.
Because all I get now is, oh, look, when he headbutted me, and it gets played all the time. And I wish now, at that moment, looking back, I'd have headbutted him back and had a fight.
So let's just get this right. Your biggest regret in life is not headbutting someone.
Dion Dublin.
No, back. Because when seriously, I know it sounds bizarre, right? It's bizarre. It is. It's bizarre.
I'll be honest with you, Rob. It'd be like taking a butter knife to a gunfight, that.
I'm not sure.
Fight.
You've seen me.
Forget
You've
the
seen
ping
me.
pong challenge. Let's invite Dublin round. We'll get a boxing ring out there.
You've seen me on the boot camps.
Yeah, you're in
You've
there
seen me
now.
right arm.
Oh, he's riled up. He's
Southpaw.
eyeballing me now. Look at him. Whoa.
Southpaw.
Robbie, don't you think you're a bigger man, not reacting?
No,
he's
because
big,
now,
Dion.
because I'm thinking now, I'm looking back, and I've done lots of things I regret. Getting Edinburgh sent off, it was embarrassing. Maldini shirt, doing all that, getting players sent off when I've acted, when I've dived. Not dived, there's been contact, I've exaggerated it because I never dived.
Yeah.
There was always been contact when I've simulated it. But I look back now, and all these videos, every time something happens on these, look what happened in Premier League years, 2000, whatever year it was. That they just show that, and I get hammered on. So, and it didn't hurt. I wish now. Listen, I don't want to fight Dion Dublin. What I'm saying is,
We'll just get that straight right now. Just get that straight right now. He's not coming for you.
Threaten him out.
But I wish now, because I was the innocent victim. It was a bad tackle, and he's got up and he headbutted me. I wish I'd have stood up now because it didn't hurt and headbutted him back.
Yeah, but
and had a fight and got sent off.
Look at you now. Hey,
I
he's
do.
an extra on Holmes under
I know
hammer.
that sounds
What you're doing.
stupid. The Holmes of the hammer.
You said that. I love that line. It's the Holmes under the hammer syndrome again.
Is that wrong for me to say that?
No,
Robbie,
it's your opinion, isn't it? Not why is it wrong?
Okay, genuinely, I think it is your opinion. I have to say, I think that's wrong. I think if somebody comes after you on the field of play in a completely unacceptable way and you retaliate, I think that's worse. I think you should take it and say, you know what you did was wrong, and I'm not going to compound that by escalating it.
Fair point.
I'm glad
point.
you didn't.
Yeah,
me too.
Why?
You don't want to be Robbie Savage, yeah, butter.
Yeah, but it's just...
He's covered himself in no glory there. Why do you want to be in that bracket?
And Andy would have beaten you up.
How do you know?
I'm winding you up. We've got to get this up.
He probably would, but that's one of the greats that I didn't stick up for me. But at the end of the day, we went on to win the game 2-0, and they were down to 10 men. So morally,
he's pricing up 2-bedroom houses in Grimsby.
Do you know, funnily enough, just last thing on
What?
I think Dion Dublin. I think he's a nice fella and does a good job.
Yeah, just to throw that in case he comes after you. Joe, I got to know Joey Barton really, really well. We became very close friends when he was living in Kew, and I live in Richmond. We'd hang out a lot. And he had.
You can see where that £3 going for his articles. He lives in Richmond.
You live in Richmond?
Yeah, you didn't know that.
You live that's
no wonder you're behind a paywall.
That's expensive there.
Well, not that expensive, but Joey Barton thought when I first met him that it was manly if somebody came after him physically or verbally, you reacted. That's what a man did. And I said to him, you know what, I think it's even more manly to walk away, to say, you know what, I'm not going to get involved in a violent spat. I mean, I'm not sure it had a huge effect, but I think it's had a certain effect on Joe, and I think he feels differently now about on-field violence and off-field violence. That's why I'm surprised that you're somebody with a broad perspective on life. That's why I'm quite surprised you regret not headbutting Dion Dublin. That's not like you.
No, it's not, but I just get fed up of all these clowns and idiots posting on social media every time something happens. Oh, look at this! The LWA butted me. So I
won't do it again.
Exactly.
I'm not telling the kids who listen to this and people to headbutt people. I'm just saying. I'm just saying that one moment, because I've done everything else on a football field, which is I'm embarrassed about. Why I should have gone back at him.
The At Home with Colin Murray podcast.
Hello, I'm Colin Murray, and in this 5 Live podcast, I'm either going to be opening up my door or going round to the houses of a famous name in sport. I'm kind of hoping that the relaxed environment's going to loosen things up a little, and by the end of each episode, we'll have a real insight into the character of each interviewee. This week, cop idol Jamie Carragher pops round to mine.
So every time I'm in a taxi, I always give him a big tip, because I know he'll tell someone if I didn't. When I lost with Liverpool, it'd take you to the gutter.
Don't worry, United fans. Michael Carragher's episode 5.
At Home with Colin Murray. Download and subscribe to the podcast using your usual podcast app or at bbc.co.uk/5live.
Next topic, and this is from Greg Myers, who asks, what age should children specialise in sport? And that obviously has lots of connotations about when should professional clubs, in football in particular, pick up children. What about the role of agents in developing young people into the professionals they could become? Some of the difficulties emotionally when you get rejected by a club that you dream of playing for. Robbie, you spotted this one from Greg, and thanks, Greg, for tweeting this in. What's your take on it?
Well, we've done parents in sport, but this is obviously a new angle because myself and Freddie have got children linked. Obviously, my boys at Manchester United and Freddie's boys are doing so well in cricket. Mm-hmm. So it got me thinking, what is the right age? You know, what's acceptable for these big clubs, for any club to pick up youngsters when they spot a talent?
Yep.
Well, my boy was 5. My boy was 5. Yeah, 5. He was playing in a I'm not sure if it was school or something. I don't know what happened, but he was spotted and was asked to go to a development centre for Manchester United in a little youth setup. Went there, and then he eventually progressed and signed forms, and then he's been with them ever since. He's now 13. I'd just come back from a tournament with Mallorca where he'd done ever so well. They lost to Liverpool, and he's seen the world. He's had experience. He's been in dressing rooms with his mates, and for me, it's been quite a good thing because it's made him grow up quicker. But looking back now, you see the percentages of kids who get released.
Yeah.
And listen, I don't know if my boy's going to be a footballer or not. Listen, he's very educated. He's at a good school, very clever. And as we explained in previous podcasts, what they go through is to combine the both, because it's very hard, is a credit to him. But
what was it like for him as a 5-year-old? Because I've got a 4-year-old daughter, and I'm trying to think of what it would be like emotionally to be selected by a club as big as Manchester United, and then suddenly have the pressure, presumably, of having to deliver.
Well, I remember what happened to me. I was at school and I was the kid in the local papers signed for Manchester United. You're the everybody wanted to know you. Everybody wanted to be on your side in football. You grew in stature because you were the main man. You signed for Manchester United. I think it's changed a little bit now because there's so many. There's agents out there who are looking after kids as young as 12, 13.
That young.
Yeah.
So how does it work?
Yeah.
Right. You take on how many kids? How many kids are there?
So, for instance, in Charlie's team, there's probably 20, 25 kids.
And there's that amount at each age group down to 5 to 16?
I would say, probably more. And the drop-off percentage gets bigger every year. The older they get, I don't know if my boy's going to be disappointed or not. But what I'm dreading, if that day comes, and I'm going to have to sit him down and say, listen, son, at a critical age of his life, GCSEs, I don't know. It might be this week, it might be next week, it might be in 4 years, he might have a great career. Who knows? But as a parent, I might have to get myself to that day when he's going to get released, possibly. And how am I going to say to him, if it happens, it might not, listen, son, at that age, critical age of his life, not quite good enough here, you've got to have to bounce back. But
there are 12,500 young people in football academies, and like 0.05 of 1% make it into the Premier League. It is a tiny fraction. So the vast majority have the big dream. They get closer to it because they're invited into an academy. Then they have the crushing realisation that it's not going to be for them.
I'm not putting your word in this, but part of me thinks, what's the point of these academies? Well, you got Man City, they've got academy, and they bring all these kids in. I've seen them, and they've got kids walking around in tracksuits, and they put them through school, and all very well and good, and they take them from a young age, and they drop them. But then they just go and buy a player.
Yeah.
They just go and buy him. I don't understand.
So the difference for me now, difference when I come through, it was very, there was lads, David Beckham's from Leytonstone, I was from Wales, and it was Great Britain were in these academies, Northern Ireland. Now, people from all over the world are coming into these academies, and in a lot, it's become about more winning at a certain age. Do you know what I mean? So if you're 12, 13, you've got to win these games. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. Whereas in my generation, it was more probably of producing players. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's different. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But what it is, I'm looking at my boy now, Fred, and the boys there. They've got agents. And is it a good thing to have an agent at such a young age? Well,
I don't understand. What does a kid need an agent for? What? I've just got this horrible image now of all these agents hanging round kids' football, taking them in en masse. Let's take 10 of these kids here. One of them, he might make a big move for £20 million when he's older, and I get me 5-10%. Yeah. And it's like vultures, this.
So because it's so lucrative, so if you can, so look at it now. I think before, and somebody on the podcast will correct me if I'm wrong. When I had an agent, I think you had to have so many Swiss francs in the bank account to be a licensed agent. I think that's changed now. Where, so for instance, if it was me, I could be my boy's agent. I think I pay a £500 fee and then £250 a year, and then I'm sure, I don't know if you have to do a course, but I could be my son's agent. Yep. And for me, I'm thinking, right, is that a good thing to do? Because if he made it and went on to be so successful, then I would become, because of my knowledge of football, and I think I've been in those circumstances, you would be a multimillionaire, wouldn't you, as a part of your family? So, for instance, there's so many players now youngsters who have progressed and doing well, might have part of their family looking after them. Yeah. But where it changes is, do you need a specialised agent in a? But
what age are we talking about? Kids having agents?
I think 11, 12.
11 years old?
Yeah,
and do you know what?
I don't think they're allowed to sign with them, though.
No.
But I think they can look
Verbal
after them.
agreement.
What's to do, like paying family or?
I don't know. I really don't know.
As a parent, if you've got like you guys, if you've got a child involved in sport, realistically, there's a chance they're not going to make it. So you're going to be encouraging them to develop as people as well as players. You want them to do their education, so they've got a fallback position. The agents, some of them are good. I know a lot of agents. A lot of them are slippery, slimy characters who sell the dream, don't give a damn about investing for the future in education. If they have a player who does get to the Premier League, don't give a damn about making sure they have enough money tucked away so that they have a lifestyle after they retire. Some of them are on kickbacks when they go into investments. It's absolutely disgraceful. So I want to come to you in just one sec, Freddie, but what would be your advice, Robbie, to parents who have young people who are involved in football? How hard should they push them at a young age? Should they be going into academies? Should they be specialising in football so early? Why not play a number of different sports until 10 or 12?
Well, that's the thing, my two boys love cricket as well.
Right.
They absolutely love cricket. But, do I regret giving him that opportunity? Because now, so at Manchester United Academy, he loves it, he enjoys it, he can't wait to get there. He goes on a Monday. He goes on a Tuesday afternoon, misses part of school. Mm-hmm. He goes on a Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So for him, added to that his homework and his pressures from school education, it's very difficult. And at times I think to myself, do you know what? He'd be better off not on academy, because I still believe if you're good enough, somebody will see you. We've seen Ian Wright, Jamie Vardy. We've seen these players. Okay, they are few and far between, but do I feel like I've pressurised him? Because I don't.
No.
He really loves it. But there's so many pitfalls. But what I'll say, mate, Manchester United have given him an opportunity. Even if he gets released, Ed, even if he gets released, he's had an opportunity to go to football tournaments, to see the world, to have the best coaching. And
how do you turn down?
Yeah,
that's
a
a difficult
as
thing.
a parent, you've got Manchester United.
Yeah.
The biggest club, arguably, in the world, wanting your lad, all these opportunities. How do you say to your kid, if he gets to 18, 17, or you could have gone United, but we decided not to.
Yeah, it's very difficult,
you can't.
Fred.
The one thing about Charlie, your lad, is, me and the missus talk about it, we're using an example for our kids, because he's not just a footballer. He kills it at school as well.
Yeah.
He's unbelievably bright, and we use him as an example to my two.
Yeah.
Because look at Charlie, what Charlie's doing. And then even the things like we listen to you and Sarah talk about, because this is not available at cricket, where Charlie goes to United and they monitor everything, don't they? They monitor his growth, his development, when he's going to have a growth spurt, and see when he should play, when he shouldn't play. And I this is all foreign stuff to me, so I try and apply that to my kids. But cricket's very different. I remember I started off, there's no academy system, no nothing. I went for a Lancashire trial when I was 9 for the under-11s. We got a coach come to the club. My dad got in. He said, why don't you send him for a trial? And I got in the system and carried through. And when you talk, Lancashire have got an academy now, and I'm not sure about it. I don't know. The jury for me is out on it, because I did it the old way. You get to 16, and then the club either take you on as a professional or they don't. And that's what happened for me. And I said, yeah, go on, I'll do it. Where now, it seems academies in cricket they're quite a cheap way to control players and keep hold of them. And they get them all together. And you can see players, you see them and you look at them thinking, you've got all these lads in here, you're giving them hope, and instantly I feel I'm a pretty good judge of a player.
Yeah.
And you look at them, and I can look at a player and say, you're not going to be a professional cricketer. Yeah. You are not going to be a professional cricketer. And in some ways, these clubs are giving these kids a bit of false hope. When they should be doing not something else, because they probably enjoy it. But it's building them up for a failure.
How old were you, Fred, when cricket became serious, where you stopped playing other sports and you began to focus exclusively on trying to make it through in that game?
Pretty soon. I played Lancashire from being 9. I played mini rugby for the school at Preston Grasshoppers, and they said, we want you to play rugby. I said, no, thanks, not for me, that. I'm not a big fan of pheasants and venison. So I didn't do that. I played football at school for acceptance, and I played for a local team, and I played a few games for Preston Boys, but I was never into it.
Yeah.
And then it was 15. I played for Lancashire under-15s against Yorkshire. The fella, John Savage, bless him, now he's died, old fella, came up to me and said, do you want to play for the second team tomorrow? I had no idea what he was on about. I said, second team or what? What are you on about? He said, speak to me dad. So the next day, I was at Old Trafford playing for the reserves at 15 against Glamorgan in a 3-day game. And I never forget, I was in the dressing room and I didn't know half the conversations that were going on, but I just wanted to play cricket. And at the end of the 3 days, I got given an envelope with £60 in, my match fee. And I got 10p a mile or something for my dad's petrol. And I was stood there. I'll never forget it. I had this envelope in my hand. And at that point, I thought, you get paid to play cricket? How good is this? Yeah. And then after that, although I got my GCSEs and everything, I just stopped everything. School, everything. I just want to be a cricketer. That's it. I'm going to be a cricketer. You can get paid. It's a job. I love it.
John, it's probably another debate. We can do agents another show because we haven't gone too much into about agents, in sport. That can be for possibly another podcast. But what I think as a parent, but with my son, what these kids have got to understand is it's nothing personal. It's ruthless.
Yep.
It's a ruthless, as Freddie's alluded to, it's a ruthless business.
Yeah.
Not
Everyone
personal.
thinks it's nice, doesn't it?
What?
Everyone thinks it's great and it's nice.
So can you imagine being a parent, and I'm sure it's happened to parents listening to this have been there, sitting down with your kid who's vulnerable age, saying, yeah, I've had that car journey back in the car next to you. When's the right time if he does get released? And what's the percentage? I think 0.05% of people who've been academy go on to play for the first team. So likelihood it's going to happen. At what point, no? Is it better to be earlier so he's got an opportunity to go and play somewhere else? Hasn't big Sam Allardyce, his grandson just got released from Manchester United and gone to Bury. And he'll have more chance of playing in Bury's first team than playing in Manchester United first team. But I wouldn't see that as a slight on him being released. He'll have more opportunity of playing low down the scale earlier.
Yeah.
So,
and
it's not the be-all, to people listening, it's not the be-all and end-all if you're released from a top club.
Yeah, and for me, sort of just taking a step back, you're right. The chances of making it through to play professional sport
especially Manchester United,
are minimal.
That's a big club.
Premier League or to get into an England cricket team. Yeah. And even if you do, the career is short. It's painfully short. You have to retire in your 30s. In most jobs, you carry on and you're getting promoted all the way through into your 50s, possibly even early 60s. And for me, it's about whether they're enjoying it. Are they developing as human beings in the sport? So that if they do get told at some point, you know what, you're not going to make it to play for United, you may not be a Premier League player, they can look at what they did as a footballer and say, that was a really important part of my life. And that in turn, are they doing it because they love the game, or are they doing it because the parent is pushing them?
I hear now, so I hear of kids being released from the Premier League clubs, and then straight away their parents saying, well, I'm going to ring X, Y, and Z. Well, no, why are you doing that? Surely you should ask your boy first, do you love it? Do you enjoy it? Do you want to carry on? And if that's if my boy got released, honestly, I wouldn't ring up clubs and say he's been released by Manchester United. Do you want to look at him on trial? I'd let him go back to school, play with his mates, play for the school team. Then if somebody sees him and says, do you know what? Come for a trial, then that's what I would do. But everybody's different, Fred.
Well, I believe that if you're good enough, you make it.
I
think it's pretty black and white in my eyes. But one thing to you, Rob, I'm hard on my kids.
Yeah.
When it comes to sport and cricket, I'm hard on them. I don't know if it's because I know what professional sport's all about. I know the good things, the bad things. I know how good you got to be and how hard you've got to work to be at the top. And even my boys 9 and 11, I'm hard on them. But are you the same with your lads, having experienced it? I'm not one of these parents, although I do it, who everything's brilliant.
Yeah.
And everything's rosy, and you make mistakes and all that. I tell them.
I'm starting to get slightly. We've talked about this in previous podcasts, but I'm starting to get slightly harder with him because I do him to think in 2, 3, 4 years' time. I wish I could have done that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's what I don't want him to happen. So I'm getting slightly harder as the older's getting because he's becoming more ruthless.
And it's worth saying the science on this. I mean, there's a lot of different viewpoints in the psychological literature about early specialisation. Everyone used to say, you know, Tiger Woods started specialising in golf at the age of 2. He played his first pitch and putt round at the age of 3, played 5,000 hours of golf by the age of 5. The Williams sisters, Mozart. Now I think it's more mixed. People who do a number of different sports and start to specialise a bit later at 10, 11, 12, 13 can sometimes do a lot better because they get what they call a broader physical literacy. They develop a wider array of skills that they can then channel at a later date. So I think it's worth parents remembering that it isn't a bad thing for children to have a number of different things that are interesting. And in some ways, it makes it more fun rather than being quite narrow.
Also, don't get disheartened. There's not many Paul Scholes and Ryan Giggs in this world, the people who are brilliant from an early age. Sometimes you'd rather be the one that's on an upward curve, not the best in the class, not the worst, but who's improving week in, week out, and the late developer. And if you're so don't get too disheartened if you play down a level because of your physical size, and that happens to a lot of people. Look at Jesse Lingard, he played down a level. Now look at him, just signed a new contract, massive part of Manchester United team. So to people out there, people develop differently. And there's always hope, but I'm with you too. If you're good enough, you'll make it.
Final topic, home advantage in sport. Now, this is, for me, it's pretty weird. I mean, footballers travel to away grounds, sometimes on private planes, but in
All the time for Arsenal.
Yeah, exactly. They stay in top hotels. The dressing rooms are fantastic. The pitches are a bit different, but not that different. And yet home advantage is still an extraordinarily strong phenomenon, not just in football, but in many different sports. Just a few stats. According to The Economist in 2014, host countries at the World Cup outperform expectations by an average of 11 places. So if they were expected to finish 16th, they would finish 5th. In club football, one blog compiling results between 2010 and 2015 from 64 different leagues, they found that the ratio of home to away wins was 2.53. I mean, this is unbelievable. Why is home advantage such a big deal?
Well, for Rob, you played at so many clubs. They're all your own ground, weren't you? How many clubs did you play at?
I think it was 7 in the end.
But in cricket, it's massive. Absolutely.
Really? Because nobody's
massive.
there. Nobody watches.
What do you mean nobody's there?
Well, like you could go to Lancashire tomorrow. There'd be 4 people and a dog.
Yeah, but
They're going to cheer.
football, you turn up, you're playing on a pitch which might change a little bit. Might be a yard smaller, a yard bigger. It's a piece of grass.
Yeah.
You got wherever you go, you've got idiots in crowd, so it don't matter. They're all chancing at each other, so that don't matter. Cricket, the pitches are tailored for your team.
Yeah.
You prepare a pitch in the middle, you put the boundaries in or out. When you play in the subcontinent, that's why England's always struggled.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different game. The ball spins, it's slow, it doesn't bounce. In England, we try and get them a bit quicker. I remember when I was captain, we got beat at Nottingham by Sri Lanka. And this ground, this pitch, I was so disappointed. It might as well have been in Colombo. The pitch spun, it was dry, and we got absolutely hammered. And then I'm thinking, am I stupid here or what? Are we not playing in Nottingham? Why is this pitch tailored for the Sri Lankans? And I did the press conference after. I'm walking in with media manager. He's saying, what do you think? I said, well, that pitch was a shocker. Absolute shocker. He said, oh, don't say that. I said, what do you mean don't say that? This is our home game and we're playing on a pitch tailored for them, but you can't say that. I said, well, I'm going to. So I said that. I got absolutely hammered.
How much discretion do the grounds people have? I mean, you couldn't have a pitch
Depends
where
how well you know them.
But could they make the pitch uneven to make it more difficult for
You won't make it uneven, but if you were playing against India, you'd leave it green.
There's a good part. I didn't realise that in the picture. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, football, there's no difference.
I think the difference. So when you play at home,
You got a different corner flag.
see, sometimes as a player, when you're underperforming, sometimes you'd rather play away because you will say the best fans for your club travel away. That's what you hear a lot. And when things aren't going well, especially when I was at Derby County, you'd hide. The crowd with 30,000 people were on you, you were losing, and it become volatile. Songs saying you're not fit to wear the shirt, and it become a very difficult place to play football. And obviously it was our fault because we were rubbish and weren't good enough. But on a whole, home advantage, you're accustomed to your routine, the same bed at night. In my case, it was the spare bed downstairs. You'd get up in the morning, you'd be around your family, your children. You know, you'd be excited going in the car to them. You'd drop them off. You'd be in the change room. You'd have your same routine. You know, then you'd go onto the pitch. You know, it was just something. Being at home when things were going well is incredible.
Let me give you another possibility to explain home advantage in
Yes.
football. Not about the players, about the referees. There's this experiment where referees watch game on a TV, some with the sound off and others with the sound on. Those with the sound on were 15% less likely to give decisions against the home team.
Really?
In other words, when you can hear the crowd and they're going after you, whenever you give a decision against the home team, subconsciously it's affecting the referee so that they're more reluctant to give a decision against the home team.
If I was with the referee, if I was playing at home, I would try and referee the game with him. As captain, I'd be saying, listen to them.
Yeah.
Listen to the 30,000. They think you made their own decision. I'd be constantly at him. And if I was away from home, I'd be saying the same thing. Listen to them. They're laughing at you now.
Yeah.
Giving everything to the home side. So I can see that from my perspective. Listen, referees are neutral and they referee the game. Whatever they say, I don't believe from a referee's point of view that they would be swayed whether it's home or away. Do you know what I mean? For that particular side, I really don't. But away matches, I didn't like being away from home in the hotel. You know, going on the bus, 3 hours on a bus.
Yeah.
If you were
not
traveling,
3 hours on a bus.
Yeah,
You poor thing. Especially if they didn't have Sky.
Yeah, and
and an Xbox and a shower.
we used to play bingo. We used to play bingo on the bus.
Play bingo.
Yeah, bingo. Nigel Clough brought bingo, and I was the bingo call at the front of the bus.
You was the caller. Come on, and do your calling.
Oh,
Come on, give us some calls.
11 legs, 11.
Yeah, what's 88?
88 is two fat ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, yeah.
Kelly's Eye.
What?
Kelly's Eye.
number 1.
Yeah. Maggie's Den.
Number 10.
Yeah.
There you go. See.
On
There
its
you go.
own. Number 3.
Also, the lads used to play cards on the bus, and there was
Key to the door, 21.
there was gambling.
It's over the shop, boy, 90.
Yeah. So on away journeys, you'd there was a
Two Little Ducks, 22.
in the early days of Leicester, lots of money was played for on the back of the bus, card schools.
Yep.
I never got involved in thousands of pounds, by the way. So, you know, you would try and
How much was bingo at? What did you get for 4 corners?
I think you won about, I think it was a 5 each or something.
What, 4 corners?
Yeah.
Then you play your 4 corners, and you go on for a line and full house. That's the routine. My Uncle Ted used to do it New Year's Eve. Then we used to play that game, do you know, you pass around pictures. Who is it? You got to write down who's in the picture.
Let's guess who.
No, you actual
Well, you can
picture.
do that on Matthew.
Yeah.
Let's play Matthew.
Did you ever play
Well, he
Mr.
could
and
be anyway,
Mrs.?
it's like a photo fit.
No hair, bald, yeah.
Have you ever done
Big
Mr.
nose,
and Mrs.
yeah?
at Christmas time?
I went on that programme, Mr.
I
and
tell you
Mrs.
what, we did it with
Did it for free,
my
didn't you?
uncles, my nana and granddad, and there were questions like, "What's your favourite meal?" And granddad, you know, he'd get 4 options, you know, roast beef, fish and chips. He'd go fish and chips, and nana would say, "We've been married for 60 years, and I've been making you roast beef every." And I tell you, it led to complete mayhem.
Recipe for disaster. But getting back to like crowds, away crowds, playing at Headingley against Yorkshire, especially in a 2020 game when it's full, there'd be 20,000 in. It's not often for a domestic game that happens, and you field in front of this stand called the Western Terrace, and it's full of drunks and students. And you stand there, and cricket, it's so hard because you don't move. You just stood there at the mercy, and you get called every name under the sun by the Yorkers. Oh, I used to call me Honey Monster. Here he is, Honey Monster. There you go, Honey Monster. And then you turn round, and you're being abused by 3 Elvises, 4 Scooby-Doos, and the cast of the WWE. You're like, well, what's going on here? And I played at Headingley. I used to have a shocker at Headingley. For Lancashire, I did all right, and then my first 2 test matches at Headingley, I got 2 ducks in the first one and 2 ducks in the second one. I had my Audi badge for test matches. I just needed 1 more for Olympic rings. I hated the place. And then you go to Leicester. Dressing room's not even big enough to get your bags in. You can't, you're all sat there. Derby, absolute rubbish. Some of these grounds.
Really?
Awful.
What was the best dressing room in football? Away ground. The most luxurious dressing room.
Oh, Arsenal's new one was great.
Yeah, at the Emirates. Seen that one.
That was brilliant. You've got to say, the more the game moved on, the more modern the dressing rooms become in terms of the cryotherapy, the baths, you know, ice baths. Incredible, really. But Crew's dressing room, it was so tight, so small. You know, you were so cramped. Little stairway. You know, old school.
Did you have to take a smaller wash bag?
Yes, the Louis Vuitton wash bag I couldn't afford at the time.
I tell you what, Lords, I tell you what, there's no place like it.
Lords.
Oh, as a cricketer,
Oh, beautiful.
It's not particularly flash. We don't have cryotherapy. And there's none of that business.
Is cryotherapy the right thing when you?
Yeah.
You
I don't know.
You get
Never heard of
after
it.
the game.
Cryotherapy, it's. I mean, officially or formally, it's when somebody freezes their dead body, hoping that in 20 years' time, technology will have moved on and they can
have
get
some muscles,
resurrected.
doesn't it? You see these
but
players
you can
going
also
in.
do a little short, sharp period at minus 270
You see these
degrees
players
C.
going in now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bang. And
But sorry, going back to Lords with no cryotherapy. I used to get to Lords, right? I'd go in, I got my routine, I go out for warm ups for 10 minutes, then come back in. There's a bacon butty waiting next to me chair and a coffee. So I have a bacon butty and a coffee. And then I'd have a coffee before I go out and play. Nice coffees there. Nice coffees, proper machine. And then you go out, you come in at lunch. I put my order in for lunch already. I put it in. I don't go to the... I stopped going to the lunchroom because I'd eat too much. So I thought if I get it brought down, I can just have what I want. So I start off with some prawns. I get prawns for lunch, bit of Mary rose sauce for dipping. Then I get a steak and chips. I'd have my steak and chips. And then they used to do this dessert called Louisiana Love Bite.
Oh.
It was like this chocolate pudding. So I'd have that with custard.
That was most days.
Yeah, then I'd go back out and have a bowl.
you wouldn't do that and go and bowl on a full
Do
stomach.
you know what I did when I was captain? I bowled 75 overs in a test match at Lords once, just because I'd eaten so much I didn't want to put weight on. I just kept bowling. My run. You see my run up when I bowled, I could bowl the same pace off half of it. But that was me burning calories. It was fitness, right? So, right, I'd have that for me lunch. And then we come off at tea. Oh, you get a good tea, nice egg butty or something, ham salad sandwiches. And you come off at the day's play, all of a sudden you got kebabs, you got everything after the play. I've had 4 square meals before I'm getting back to the hotel, and I'll go again.
Yeah, see, after the game in the dressing room, we used to have pizza, chips, curry in the dressing room.
Nowhere
after
near
the
as
game.
good as
Yeah.
prawn, steak and chips.
But-
Louisiana Love Bite.
Right.
Hey, if it's a batting day, there's a little office at the back where I watch Jeremy Kyle in the morning while the lads are having a bat, and I get food brought down. Just bring food down.
No wonder you miss playing cricket as much as you
It
do.
was
So, man,
brilliant.
going back to your question about home, see, on a football
Okay,
field,
worst stadium. The stadium that you played in that you had the worst results and that you hated. And Freddie, for you as well.
saying
Cricket
that,
ground.
Old Trafford, people think Old Trafford and Anfield, but Old Trafford, we went there with Leicester won, went there with Blackburn won, done the double over United. So we had a good
I
record
said
at Old
worst,
Trafford,
not
yeah.
not all your best results away from.
Worst would be the old Highbury. Used to go there and get absolutely hammered.
Really?
5, 6s, just incredible. What a stadium with the old clock at
Yeah.
the end. Highbury never got a result there. Horrendous place to go. And they were a great team. They were
Yeah,
a great
fantastic.
Durham. Oh, I hate it there. Hate it. Hate that place.
Was that the worst food?
Oh, food. Do you know what happened at Durham? I think because you get charged, each of the club has a catering department and charges per head. And I think Durham, they didn't want to spend much on the players' food. It was like a dry pasta or something. Not interested. And also, as well, it was always windy. I didn't like the wind. If I was bowling, if it's in my face, I'm fine. If it's a crosswind, it sends me off. So I didn't like Durham. I never did well at Durham. And I know they nearly went under a few weeks ago, but, you know, I wish they'd have done it 20 years ago. my career would have been better. I hated it. And Steve Armison's one of my best mates, and he used to tell me, I didn't get it. I like a cricket ground. A nice traditional cricket ground, not these new builds.
No matter
With a decent buffet. Guys, thanks so much. Brilliant.
Sorry, what about you, Matthew?
quickly,
Where's your
move-
favourite ping pong table?
Well, the thing about table tennis was that you played in the UK in different sports centres. And the most important thing for me was the flooring. Because you think you got a white ball or an orange ball. And I was a defender, so I went away from the table. If the flooring was too light, you would lose the ball against the background of the floor when you were trying to slice away from the table. So I liked dark, uniform flooring. And then so when I played Douglas in Bath, like the flooring there when I cheated. But home and away, it didn't really exist so much in table tennis, which is why I'm amazed at the influence it has in football. In cricket, you can understand it.
Cricket use
They're
a
actually
different ball. If you go to Australia, you use one ball, which goes soft really quick. Go to
Yeah,
India,
yeah.
use a different ball.
Right.
In this country, we use our own bowls.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. It's tricky.
Well, look, guys, thanks as ever, and thank you for listening. If you're hearing this on 5 Live, you can download the podcast for an extended version of the show at the 5 Live website and all the usual podcast places. Please use the hashtag FredSavSide to get in touch with us through the week. If you could leave a review on iTunes, that would be fantastic. We really appreciate those who have done so already, and we'll be back next week at the same time. For now, from all of us, goodbye.
Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
Thank you for downloading the Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy podcast. If you like what you hear, then why not have a look at what else 5 Live podcasts have to offer at bbc.co.uk/5 Live.